The phone jangled, a discordant shriek in the night. Rain lashed against the windows, wind howled like a banshee. I jolted awake, heart thudding. It was my mother. Her voice, usually calm and steady, was tight with terror. "Help me!" she choked out, each word a struggle. "Please, it's here." The line went dead. I stared at the phone, a knot of fear tightening in my gut. This wasn't like her. My mother didn't scare easily. Something was terribly wrong. I grabbed my keys, a sense of dread washing over me. I had to get to her now. The highway stretched before me, slick with rain. Each flash of lightning illuminated the deserted road. My wipers struggled to keep up with the downpour. The wind buffeted my car, trying to shove it off the road. Fear gnawed at my insides. Each mile felt like 10. My mother's house was an hour out of the city, a rambling old Victorian in the middle of nowhere. She loved its isolation, its peace and quiet. But tonight, that isolation felt ominous. It felt dangerous. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, pushing down the fear. I had to get to her. The old iron gates groaned open, revealing the house. It loomed in the darkness, windows dark and lifeless. Rain lashed at the walls, like an angry spirit trying to break in. I raced up the porch steps, my heart pounding against my ribs. The door swung open before I could even touch it. The house was silent except for the roar of the storm outside. It felt heavy, oppressive, like something dark and malevolent was lurking just out of sight. Shadows danced in the flickering candlelight, taking on monstrous shapes. The air was thick with a strange, cloying scent. It smelled like fear. "Mom!" I called out, my voice echoing in the empty hallway. "Where are you?" A muffled sob came from the living room. I found her huddled on the floor, her eyes wide with terror. "It's here," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I can feel it." She was shaking, her face ashen. Her eyes, usually so full of life, were clouded with fear. I knelt beside her, gathering her in my arms. "It's okay, Mum," I said, trying to sound calm. "I'm here now. What is it? What's wrong?" But even as I spoke, a shiver ran down my spine. The air in the room felt heavy, charged with an unseen energy. The storm raged outside, but inside the house an unnatural stillness had fallen. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the wind against the windows sent a jolt of fear through me. "Did you see anything?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. My mother shook her head, her eyes darting around the room. "Not exactly," she whispered. "But I heard things, whispers, and it's cold, so cold." She was right, the temperature in the room had plummeted. A bone-chilling cold settled around us, despite the warmth of the fire in the hearth. I walked around the room, my senses on high alert. There were cold spots scattered throughout the room, pockets of icy air that sent shivers down my spine. Section 6, Midnight Manifestation. The grandfather clock in the hallway chimed 12 times, each chime echoing like a death knell. As the last chime faded, the room went deathly silent. The storm outside seemed to hold its breath. Then it began. A low growl, barely audible at first, vibrated through the air. It seemed to emanate from the very walls of the house. The shadows in the corners of the room deepened, swirling and writhing as if alive, and then it materialized. A figure, tall and skeletal, coalesced from the darkness, its eyes glowing red embers fixed on my mother. Section 7. A son's courage. Terror threatened to overwhelm me, but I couldn't give in. Not now. My mother needed me. "Get away from her!" I roared, stepping in front of my mother, shielding her with my body. The figure turned its fiery gaze on me. The air crackled with an unseen energy. Fear, raw and primal, threatened to consume me, but I stood my ground. I wouldn't let it hurt her. Not while I still drew breath. Section 8. Dawn's Embrace. The first rays of dawn pierced through the darkness, painting the windows with hues of gold and crimson. As the light touched the shadowy figure, it let out an ear-piercing shriek. It thrashed and writhed, trying to escape the light. Then with a final, agonizing wail, it vanished. Silence descended upon the house. The storm had passed, leaving behind a world washed clean. My mother and I sat huddled together on the floor, the warmth of the rising sun chasing away the lingering chill. The nightmare was over. Section 9. Love's Triumph. My mother reached out, her hand trembling, and touched my cheek. Her eyes, no longer clouded with fear, shone with love and gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "You saved me." I held her close, the warmth of her love chasing away the last vestiges of fear. We had faced the darkness together, and our bond, forged in fear and love, was unbreakable. The storm was over, but the memory of that night, the night I fought a demon to save my mother, would stay with me forever. It was a reminder of the power of love, a love strong enough to conquer even the darkest of evils.